Welcome back to Granted Gardens. My name is Melissa. Things have gotten much cooler here on the homestead, and roughly everything that we have growing has died off, and that time has just come to pass. However, I thought that since we have so many new subscribers over the last 12 months, maybe I'd kind of walk you around and introduce you to the critters of Granted Gardens. So this one here is my puppy. Her name is Mika. I've had her now for a little less than 8 years. I think she'll be 8 next year. And she is a Yorkie Shih Tzu mix. I always really wanted to have like a little dog, a little Yorkie. I always thought they were so pretty. I love the color of their fur. And so when I had initially moved out of my parents' house, it was one of my first purchases. So I got Mika, and she has been my buddy since day one, basically. It's been me and her for a long time. But she is precious. Some of her most favorite things to do are to chase deer in the woods, which is what she's looking for right now because there was one out here. But she's a good girl and she likes to talk. She loves to hear herself talk. She really loves to watch the chickens as well. She has not had the opportunity to mingle with them yet because we don't necessarily trust her. If you know anything about Yorkies, they were bred to actually chase mice and rats out of the coal mines before the workers went down there. So that's what's in their blood. So she has brought home on more than one occasion presents for us, but it's not something that happens very regularly. Even still, we do try to keep the distance between her and the chickens to keep them safe. This is Shanti. She is my bonus dogger, is what I call them. She is Tyler's dog that we have the pleasure of inheriting. So she is a German Shepherd. Can you see her? She doesn't like to pose for the camera. So Shanti also likes to chase deer, but she is better than Mika in that she will stop when you tell her to stop, where Mika just runs after them. What's nice is that the dogs have both at this point figured out the property. You can go. The dogs have both figured out the property, which is nice. So they are not chained up. We don't have any electrical fences for them. Our property runs back towards, like, into the woods, which is not so much of a concern because they'll run through the woods, but they know where their time is to stop, and they will stop and they will turn around. Shanti has only gone off once, and that was when she was like the first time she ever came over to visit, or like something like that. But other than that, the dogs run free. There is a main road at the front of the house, which has been something that is always really nerve-wracking for me. But again, the dogs have been trained very, very well. We just don't spend much time in the front yard. And there's absolutely no time in the front yard for them unsupervised. But the only thing that does catch up to me sometimes is that if people turn into the driveway, the dogs get excited, and that's what scares me. So we don't like unexpected visitors. So that's basically the story behind the dogs. It's funny because obviously this lifestyle was not something that I was heavily involved in or even really interested in to a certain extent at all 8 years ago. So when I got a Yorkie, I was getting it for companionship, not necessarily for farming purposes. And yeah, not the greatest breed of choice, I would imagine, for those circumstances. But she has definitely grown accustomed to what we have. I do hope to have some more animals for her to experience here in the future. Not sure how soon in the future, but that's to be determined. So here we are with my outdoor pets, the extent to what we have so far on the homestead, and these are our chickens. So Tyler built this coop and this run entirely from scratch by hand. We have a video that kind of recaps how he built it and everything that I'll try to link here. But right now these are the chickens that we have. So I'm going to show you around and maybe kind of explain to you guys a little bit about my why I wanted chickens. Okay, so it was spring of 2020. It was March actually, because it was just, I think, a week after my birthday, something like that. So like March, April, I've been talking about how I wanted chickens for the longest time, forever. And I'd done a lot of research, and one of the biggest reasons why I wanted them so much was because they were fairly simple pets to have on the farm, right? They don't take a lot of time, they don't take a lot of effort, they're not too expensive. So I figured, you know, that's where would be a great place for us to start, would be with chickens. So spring of 2020, that was about the time when things started going a little bit differently in the world. And I was like, you know what, let's do this. Let's get chickens. So one day Tyler shows up with a box of chicks, and we had 8 chicks that we had bought from southern states. They were sexed, but how that usually goes is it's kind of hard to tell when they're little, and it's never 100% guarantee. So we ended up with 7 hens and 1 rooster. We have 2 Barred Rocks, 2 Americanas, 2 Black Lace Wyandottes, and 2 Buff Orpingtons. So one of the Americanas ended up being a rooster, which I'll see if I can link that video here because that was a fun one, how we found out. And then the rest of them were all hens. My initial why, like I shared with you, of why I wanted to get chickens was because they were easy and it was a good introductory animal to starting out on a homestead. We had a lot of gardens, but we had not incorporated animals yet, so I really wanted to make sure that we did that. Moving forward, the concept of being able to have fresh eggs was really exciting to me. Like, I liked the idea of the fact that we could have animals that actually provided us with something that we could use on a daily basis. So I thought that was a huge win. So a little introductory right here. This is one of our Black Lace Wyandottes. Her name is Lacey, aka Mama. She was the one that went broody in the end of the spring last year, and so she hatched out these 2 that are next to her. So these are our babies, quote unquote. We are very, very sure that those are both roosters. Very, very sure. So their future is to be determined. Over here, this is Blue. And it's hard to tell right now, but in the sun, her feathers shine this really gorgeous blue metallic color. Back there, this is Mary Kate, and she's a twin with this one over here, which we call Ashley, aka Karen, because she's mean. Those 2, I could never really tell them apart at first, so we just named them Mary Kate and Ashley. And then over here, this is Goldie Hen. She is molting right now. So not her prettiest side, but she will grow those feathers back in here shortly. Yes, I'm talking about you. The Barred Rocks, the Mary Kate and Ashley, like I said, they were twins and I could never tell them apart, ever. I mean, they were the exact same size. They acted the same way. It was very hard to ever tell them apart. Up until, I would say, 6 months ago maybe. And then one of them started acting up a lot, and she was picking on everyone else. Obviously, she's high on the pecking order, and she made that very clear. And so we started calling her Karen because she just was mean. And then Goldie Hen also had a sister that was the same breed as her. However, we lost that chicken. There was an issue with our rooster picking on that chicken, and so we had secluded her into a smaller cage that we have. Something got to her, so we lost her over the summer last year. From that point, the rooster that we had, that was the Americana Rooster, he got really mean to everyone. He was bad to all of the girls. He was just completely acting out, and it was out of control. So he made a short trip to freezer camp. And then right before he left for freezer camp, we had a hen go broody. Mama went broody, so we gave her some eggs, and all of them were fertilized because Jeffrey was still around, and Jeffrey was our rooster. And so we actually hatched 2 new eggs, which was really great because we had lost 2 chickens, and we hatched 2 new ones, so we're really excited about that. But very, very sure that these are both roosters. So yeah, we'll see. Game plan is to keep one of them and send another one to freezer camp, which is probably going to be the big one, which is the full Americana rooster. We know that he is 100% Americana because he was the only blue egg that was in there that hatched, and he looks exactly like his daddy. Now the other rooster that we have here is like white. It's really pretty. I have no idea who the mama is, but he's got such a beautiful pattern. Isn't he pretty? Oh, he's so pretty. And then last but not least, I was hoping that she'd come around. The little girl back here in the dress, she hides. Her name is Cleopatra. Cleopatra is our Americana hen. She is also very low on the pecking order, and she gets picked on all the time. Recently her feathers were rough because the girls were pulling the feathers out of her back. So that's why she has that saddle on. They call it a chicken saddle, or the little dress. It's just to keep her shoulders and her back protected right now from the girls, because the girls were pecking at her. Other ways that can be used is for roosters. When they go to mate, they will grab onto the back feathers, and by using that chicken saddle, it will keep those back feathers from being pulled out during mating. So these are the chickens. They're beautiful. They all kind of went through a molt recently, so they were looking a little wonky, but I think that they're all starting to get their feathers back. I'm super excited that we did this. This was a solid choice for us, I think. Getting the chickens. I've never regretted it. I've never regretted it. There was a hard time there when we lost one of them, but even then I did not regret getting chickens. And so right now things, like, it's getting colder and the days are getting shorter, but we're still getting about an egg a day. During the summer we'll get, you know, 7-8 eggs a day. So depending on depending on who's around. I mean, right now obviously we've got 2 roosters, so 6 eggs a day. But they're honestly, they're amazing little pets to have on the homestead. The benefits are endless because you do get a source of protein from their eggs on a fairly regular basis. There's also ways that you can store eggs to make them last a lot longer too, which I've shared some of that information in some of my videos. And you know, if something went south and we really needed a meal, we now know how to butcher chickens as well properly. So there really isn't a downside to owning chickens. There really isn't. It only takes me maybe 5 minutes every morning to come out, check their food, check their water, refill if necessary. We've got some systems set up here that make it easy for us to refill the food. Obviously in the winter time is when we start using that heated bowl. We don't need to turn it on quite yet, but that blue bowl there is a heated bowl so that when it gets too cold and this starts freezing, we can just switch to that and it'll keep the water warm and keep it from melting. Hello. Now, some more critters that we have here on the homestead that also have a job are our worms. So this is our vermicompost bins that Tyler had made. I will link in the video here above of us putting it together. We've made some alterations since then, but nothing big. I think we ended up taking out one of the buckets that just wasn't really doing anything. So we're down to 2 buckets and a lid. So the concept here with vermicomposting is that you can buy worms. These are red wigglers. We bought, I think it was a 500 count Gold Joe's or something like that. I don't know. I'll link the video so you can double check the video. But the concept here is that we have this vermicomposting bin set up. It stays in our kitchen, and essentially all of our chicken scraps that don't go to the chickens, so some of the smaller scraps, just go in here in the bucket, and we keep our worms going. The worms will create two things. They'll create a liquid, which is down in the bottom bucket. That's really great. You can cut it with water and you can water all of your plants, so it's going to give them tons of nutrients. And then they also have their waste, solid waste, which is in the second bucket, that you can add to your gardens throughout the season to give them nutrients and vitamins and such. So I'll give you a quick peek in here. It's not exactly pretty, but it's functional. What else is nice about vermicomposting is as long as you do it properly and you keep it going, there's no smell, there's no mold, there's nothing terrible. There's no smell, so you don't have to worry about it stinking up your house, and it's a great way to get rid of those kitchen scraps without throwing them in the trash and just having them end up at a dump. Alright, so here you can see, and if I just pull back a little bit, you can see all of our worms, happy as all get out. Now there's a lot of liquid in here, so I need to do something about that right now. Usually you'll see them go after all of the food scraps and such that are here near the top, and then we just cover it with newspaper. Right now I just need to drain the bottom because we haven't emptied this out in a while. So I'm going to just drain the bottom, dump this liquid into the garden beds, and keep these guys going. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this first section, this first bucket. This is what has the worms in it and the compost and most of the solid waste in it. I'm going to just set this here for a second. This bucket here has holes in the bottom of it, so I'm going to let it sit here to drain for a little while to let that water run through. Now it's a little cold outside. It's not terribly cold today, but it's still a little bit colder than the worms are used to, so I don't want to leave them out here for too long because it might shock them. But I'm going to leave them out just long enough for that bucket to drain out a bit. And then here in this bucket you can see all the liquid waste. So I'm going to go ahead and spread this through the garden. Now typically if you had something growing in these beds, you'd want to cut this with water because you wouldn't want to shock the plants. But there's nothing growing in here right now, so I'm not worried about just pouring this straight on. So that's actually going to add to the soil that we have already here in this garden bed. And this is something that you should do regularly throughout the year. Over the last 6 months or so, it's gotten away from me. When we were doing the fall garden, it would have been a great time to use it for the fall garden, but I just forgot, to be honest with you. So now we're gonna let this drain for a little bit, and then I'll be back. I'll just put the buckets back together, put them back in the kitchen, add some more food scraps because it looked like they were pretty low, and cover it up with newspaper. I think I do have a video out of this too, so I'll try and find it and link it above. Alright guys, well that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for following along as we shared with you some of our babies that we have here on the homestead. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon. Say bye. Say bye. Bye.